right, fam, you've tried everything. And I do mean everything. And nothing seems to work. And let's be honest, there are some things that you might have done up to this point that have gotten you to the pain and consequences you're currently dealing with. Gave into some passions, gave into some impulses that you acted on that you're looking back on and you're like, I wish I never did that. Feel scorched, defeated, burning with anger. And you're bottled up with so much emotion that you're probably going to explode at any given moment. It's so interesting to hear and maybe even describe your story like this because it reminds me of a story I've read. There was once a people named Israel, or the children of Israel, that made a covenant with the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, after being delivered from Egypt at the hands of Pharaoh. Israel would choose to be his people, and God would choose to be their God. And it was upon this covenant that God issued standards, disciplines, rules granted to these people in order for them to live a holy life that reflected the God of Israel. Him choosing this people to be an example among all surrounding nations, to show them who the God of Israel is, so that they too had an opportunity to follow after him. And it was in the midst of this covenant that God promised an ultimate promised land that would be given to these people upon their obedience to him. And of course, through journeys, through setbacks, 40 years in the wilderness, they eventually get to this promised land. But it was when they got to this promised land that it seemed like so much went south. These people began to go against God in every way, shape, and form, giving in to their impulses, giving in to their passions, giving in to anything and everything they desired, turning their backs on him and worshiping other gods, giving in to anything and everything they could. And in the process of this, they lost sight of truth, of wisdom, of understanding. And what once was supposed to be such a beautiful story between a people and God came one that was disastrous and in need of great restoration. God, allowing this to go on for so long, has now made the decision that justice is necessary, correction is necessary. And so how he goes about this is subjecting his people to 70 years of captivity at the hands of Babylon, being the most powerful and scariest nation among Israel at this time because of their disastrously disobedient behaviors to God, breaking the covenant and no longer honoring God in the process. All of these things that they have brought upon themselves by their poor decisions. There is light even at the end of the tunnel. And this light is restoration. That even though they have turned their backs on God, they've been unfaithful to God, and they have completely disregarded all that God is, all that God has done for them, and no longer choosing to do things his way. Even though these consequences that they are going to suffer through is going to be brought upon themselves because of their own poor decisions, God does not leave them to ruin, but promises a great restoration. But there's a process that these people have to go through. And it's a process that includes them dropping everything they've turned to, means and ways and devices to rid of all the evil and all the things that they've done and that they have brought on themselves, and to turn to the very one they've been ignoring, who has the keys to the healing and restoration they are in need of as they embark in this journey. And maybe that seems like a position you might be in, where in the midst of great darkness and in the midst of great struggles and wilderness, dry areas and dry seasons in your life, you too have looked to turn to everything to get rid of the feelings, get rid of the pains, get rid of the frustrations, and to really subside yourself from everything you've been enduring. You have gone through a lot in your life. You have gone through a lot of struggle and a lot of pain, a lot of grief and a lot of tears. Your problems seem so much bigger, so much scarier. Your struggles seem insurmountable and unable to overcome, and you are just unsure how any of this is going to make sense, turn out for your good, work out in the end, or even be able to be so much as recovered. And your heart is heard, your tears are seen, your frustrations are made loud and clear. And just as much as this same offer is granted to the people of Israel by God in the book of Isaiah, is the same offer that is granted to you and I in the midst of places and seasons where we are in desperate need of restoration and healing. And it is the opportunity to turn to God, to listen to what he has to say on the matters of our heart, and be willing to serve and pursue him in order to receive the healing that we desperately need. And it is through this process that we are actually going to be able to get everything we need. And here's how we're going to go about it. It's a lot going on. It's a lot of pain that we're enduring. And we need to acknowledge that we're hurt. Whether it was a heartbreak, separation, financial issues, anything and everything that just doesn't seem to go right. We need to be willing to acknowledge that there is a problem, that we are hurt and hurting because of it. And maybe even to an extent, it's possible that there are some things we might have done that we brought on ourselves. Poor decisions that created poor results and furthermore, poor consequences. None of us are perfect. All of us have made poor decisions. All of us have compromised and given in to impulses and passions that we look back on later down the road and say, nah, that wasn't the move. This is an opportunity for us to not only acknowledge that that wasn't the move, that that wasn't something we should have done, and that wasn't something that was best for our interests, but as a result of acknowledging that, be on the road to the restoration we've been claiming to have. And as a result of acknowledging that, now we need to turn and accept anything that has to be said on the matter from God and his word. There are going to be a lot of hard truths that are going to be said in this journey, a lot of things that God is going to reveal to us in this space and time as we get to learn more of him, pursue him, get closer to him, and really get an opportunity to allow his word to reign precedence in our heart over the matters and issues of our heart. But in the process of these hard truths and things that are going to be revealed to us, they are things that we need to hear, albeit maybe not comfortable, albeit maybe not fun, but things that we need to hear in order to get to the place that God ultimately desires for us to be, healed, whole, and complete in him. So how do we go about hearing what God has to say on the matters of our heart? Being in prayer, making Bible reading essential, and getting ourselves plugged into community around us. We're going to be able to not only believe God for us, but believe God with us for the restoration that we are greatly in need of through the sufferings and pains that we are going through in this current season. This is going to be a journey. This is not going to be an overnight process. And this is something that we are going to have to work at day in and day out in order to get the results that we're looking for. Our patience is required. Our willingness to listen to God is required. Our willingness to separate ourselves from people and environments that are not helping us get the healing we need is required. And this is the time to lean into what God has to say in order to get the healing we need. Thirdly, we need to prioritize acknowledgement over feelings. This process that you're going to go through, a lot of emotions are going to bubble up. A lot of feelings are going to come up as a result of you going through what I like to call divine therapy. We are leaning into what God has to say and accepting everything that he has to say on the matter, about us, about the situation, about how we are going to need to move forward in it. He's going to speak oh so gently, oh so softly, in a way that's going to allow us to embrace his words and move forward into what's ahead of us. But don't allow the feelings that you get to confuse you. There are going to be days where it's going to feel better some than others. There are going to be days where it seems like you're getting everything and it makes sense. There are going to be some days where everything feels slow, feels like a crawl. Feels like you're not doing a whole lot, or you're not getting places, or you're not getting to where you think you should be. There are going to be days where you're happy and days where you're frustrated. Tears are flowing down your face. I want you to be encouraged that as you go through these ups and downs, as you go through this journey of the healing that is in front of you to the restoration you need, that there is power in acknowledging who God is and remembering the power that God has, and that he is greater than our problem, greater than our situation, and that instead of zooming into our issues, we need to zoom out and zoom into who God is, that puts our problems in the right perspective and allows us to find the peace we need even in the chaos that we're currently dealing with. The same God that created you and I is the same God that weighed the mountains and hills on scales. It's the same God that no one has counseled, and is the same God that is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. With all power in his hands, who spoke words and things were created, is the same God that has the capacity and the power to walk you through the dark valley that you find yourself in and bring you out to a place of restoration you need. So acknowledging who God is and remembering and reflecting on what he says about us, on who he declares himself to be of the very Bible we study, is what is going to encourage us to keep going, whether it's we're flying, whether it's we're running, or whether it's we're walking and crawling. We're constantly moving to where God desires us to be, one day at a time, committing ourselves to doing the work that's necessary. Journal out your emotions. Acknowledge what you're feeling. Remain in prayer. Remain in your Bible studies. Remain in spaces where your mind is constantly being washed and renewed by the word of God. Because it is in this process that a lot of programming and old habits, old ways of thinking are going to be worked on and poured out of you by way of more of Christ being poured into you. And this is a process we must be willing to endure to get the healing we oh so need. And then finally, I need you to turn away from the devices that you've been leaning to. I need you to turn away from all the habits and behaviors that you've been using to distract you from your struggles, to distract you from your pain. The one thing that you've been running to that numbs the frustrations and numbs what you've been feeling as a result of the separation, the heartbreak, the problem, and the issue that's in your life. Because all those things have massaged your wounds, but they haven't healed it. Maybe you've turned to other people who have validated your feelings and not really given you much to do with your feelings. Maybe you've turned to communities like Red Pill, Manosphere, all these other kinds of outlets that have been really well at describing the pains you have, but haven't really been helping you get through those pains. Instead, have chosen to create you out of your pain and giving you room to move with that as your identity instead of getting you the healing you need. Maybe it's binge watching TV shows, binge gaming. Maybe you've gotten engaged in more. Maybe it's the drinking at the end of the bottle. Maybe it's the drugs that you've used to get yourself so high and away from reality and away from the pain you're feeling. Whatever and any outlet that you've turned to, your challenge is to turn away from those things. Let those things go and choose to trust fully in God and what he has to say on the matter at hand. I know it's scary. I know you don't want to feel those emotions. I get it. You would rather feel anything than what you've been feeling. But look at the results that we have in front of us. We've tried everything and nothing has really helped us. And so here we are, needing healing, needing restoration. And God is the one and only who can bring it to us fully, allowing ourselves to become whole in the process. Remember what God said about you. Remember who God is and all that he's already done. And remember to give him the final say as you embark on this new journey of healing. Presents a light at the end of the tunnel, this light being restoration. This is not the end for you. This pain, this suffering, this wilderness, this dryness is not the end for you. This is just a new beginning that embarks a life filled with transformation and availability to grow closer to God. And as a result, get closer to rebuilding healthy, happy, and whole relationships around you, finding the joy, the freedom, the peace that you've been looking for, just all in the wrong places. Jesus is the foundation, and with him being the foundation, healing is available. We're not too far gone, and we are able to be restored to places we never thought we could due to the heartbreak, pains, and scorched feelings we've been carrying all this time. So happy healing to you, and embark this journey, this challenge with confidence, believing that God can restore you back to full health. You're not too far gone. I believe in you. Let's get after it. If you like this kind of content, be sure to share it with a friend. Subscribe if you're new. Turn on the post notifications so you know the next time we're posting. And happy healing to this journey that isn't an overnight success, but is a lengthy process and requires your daily decision making to be willing to hear from God, seek his face, and allow him to do the work necessary to get you to where he desires you to be, which in the end is healthy, healed, and with him. I love you guys, and until next time, be easy and be breezy, my friend. Peace.